intentions don't lead to effective practices. So now what we're working on is consistency. We know now that if we're going to be a trajectory changing school, if we're going to truly change the learning outcomes for kids and accelerate growth, we need to have coherence in and across our classrooms. I need accelerated growth for every child not yet proficient, or we are not giving them a chance.
They can absolutely access grade level experiences. And so we are building out scaffolds and supports and adaptations that still ensures that students are getting access to high quality instructional materials, and that teachers are planning and supporting the students in getting access to grade level and not watering down the content because there's a belief that maybe they can't. They can, and our educators are seeing that by building those scaffolds and not modifying the experience or the curriculum, that students are accessing and they're thriving.
I realized that GLEAM wasn't a fad and it's not a gimmick or a program, but it's really more about the underlying belief that every kid wants to learn and every kid can learn, coupled with the belief that every teacher wants to teach effectively and can teach effectively if and when they are supported and provided the resources that they need.
GLEAM also shows up in using high quality instructional materials, especially with learning routines that are embedded in those programs. That's really the heart of it, is ensuring that students have that predictability so that they can focus their cognitive effort on learning the grade level content, not on constantly guessing how they're going to be learning.
Instructional coherence is complicated, and when you're trying to rally an entire district around certain ideas, priorities, initiatives, focus, you have to do that in community.
The depth of conversations that can take place amongst our educators as they're implementing the high quality instructional materials has become so much more rich because we have created that consistency. And that work with Unbound Ed has really helped us continue to set those goals, reflect on our progress, and as a team, think critically around how do we continue to expand and not just be okay with, hey, we've spread this across a few levels and we've made it, but it's not good enough until we know that every single one of our students is getting access to grade level experiences in our classrooms.
I think there's a misconception between teaching a grade level lesson and ensuring that kids are using grade level thinking. And so that's what the real shift to me is that I would highlight. It's the thinking versus the completion of a task. It looks like teachers planning really thoughtfully before they're standing in front of children. So planning with the high quality instructional materials and the standards in mind. Knowing that whatever the lesson objective is, our job is to make sure that every student in that class has access to that thinking. So whatever visual supports, prerequisite skills, pre-teaching, small group, all of that is part of making sure that the access is there for 100% of our students.
GLEAM also shows up in how the adults interact with each other and talk about student learning, having high expectations and not using deficit-based language, using asset-based language, and having an idea that everybody can achieve. And that also means that the adults believe that they themselves can learn and grow. There have been many moments where I've suddenly realized, okay, GLEAM is working. For example, we have a student leadership council, and there have been several moments where I've seen them engage with their peers in really rigorous, productive discourse and writing tasks and campaigns across the school, such as a cleanup campaign that we currently have going. And they're suddenly applying everything that we've taught them on their own. And they're doing it for a purpose that's important to them.
I've been in hundreds of classrooms this year, which is a real joy, and I get to see firsthand the outcome of when students have access to grade level learning with a high quality instructional material. And I hear from students almost daily about why it's so important for them to have rigorous, challenging tasks and text in front of them. You see data from what GLEAM instruction looks like in the classroom, and we have thousands of observations of that information, and then what we can do is correlate that to student outcomes. And what we see is that when educators provide students with grade level engaging, affirming, and meaningful experiences, the student outcomes change.
The continued work is how do you sustain it over time so that it becomes the fabric of the work that we do every day. And what I'd offer is that this has been a journey, and we are still very much continuing to try to find ways to scale and sustain this work over time so that a student that comes in as a transitional kindergarten student will leave 12th grade knowing that they've had the finest education in the United States.